the September 9th, 2024 Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. Will we start off with the roll call?
Yes. Darren Angel.
Here.
Scott Conlon.
Here.
Thomas Davis. Paige Lewis. Sam Libby.
Here.
Nicholas Navarro.
Here.
Hannah Mulroy.
Here.
And Council Liaison Sean McCoy.
Here.
Fantastic. Good group for today. Okay, let's move on next to the approval of the agenda. We have Jeff, real quick. Are we good on the agenda? Any adjustments?
I guess the only thing I would say is, can we do new business first? That way Jim and Sam can do their presentations.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Great. Oh, we got it. Aaron second. Sorry, Scott.
That's fine.
All those in favor? Okay. That is unanimous. Fantastic. Great. All right. Cool. Then let's move on. We're gonna do meetings first. Move on to approval of previous month's minutes. Any amendments we want to make to the previous month's minutes? I'm gonna call out. Nothing in there. Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve as written. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Everyone's in favor. Awesome. Great. Moving on. Public invited to be heard. Do we have any public invited to be heard for today? No public invited to be heard, which means that we can move on to new business. Starting off with the Fire and Longmont Grasslands, past, present, and future. Wow, what a great title. That's a decent one.
All right, well, thank you. I'm Jim Crick, Ecosystem Manager for City of Longmont, and so here to talk about fire in our Longmont grasslands, past, present, and future. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't think we need too much of an outline here. So, particularly when we're talking about land management, I think it's really important to refer to the city's land acknowledgement. So, we acknowledge that Longmont sits on the traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous peoples. We honor the history and living and spiritual connection that the first peoples had with this land. It is our commitment to face the injustices that happened when the land was taken and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. And I think that really ties in pretty good segue into past what's been going on with Longmont's grasslands and fire. So historically, maybe I refer to historically, kind of pre-colonization, and so most of eastern Boulder County was shortgrass prairie, and it was estimated that fires would occur naturally every 2 to 20 years, depending on what research you're looking at, but pretty frequent. And so predominantly those fires were caused by lightning and to a lesser extent by indigenous peoples. Those indigenous peoples that hunted bison, with their millennia of knowledge of grasslands and bison interactions, learned that bison would be attracted to the fresh green growth after a wildfire. That green growth is a lot more nutritious, so bison they love that stuff, so they go straight for it. So they were able to learn this, and they would occasionally set their own fires to be able to attract bison to hunting grounds. So people have been manipulating our grasslands with fire for millennia. So grasslands and fire, grasslands have evolved with fire for pretty much beginning of time when grasslands started. And so fire plays a really important role in grassland health. And so one of the ways that it does that is by nutrient cycling. So you get a lot of nutrients in plant growth, and then it dies, and then that nutrients can get tied up in that old plant growth. And so fire is really important to return those nutrients back to the soil. Fire has been shown to actually increase soil microbial activity and make those nutrients more accessible to more plant growth. Fire also reduces plant litter, so that plant litter without fire will accumulate and get pretty dense, and that can smother out new plant growth, which is really detrimental to grasslands. And it will actually keep the soil cooler and delay plant growth year to year. So it can, after a while, that increased amount of plant litter can be detrimental to grassland health. fire is also really important in maintaining mosaic of diversity. So fires, it would basically spot across the grassland and create a disturbance to the grassland. And so plant communities, they go through what's called a successional stages of development. So after a disturbance, you'll get a lot of fast colonizing annual plants, biennial, short-lived perennials. And then over time, those plant communities shift to different species to eventually what's called a climax community plant species of perennial species that without any disturbance, that grassland will just kind of get locked in place into those climax communities. And so that then over time, without any more disturbance, there will be less diversity that wildlife depends upon. And so as those fires spot over different time periods across the landscape, that'll increase more diversity and have different communities at different stages of that succession. Fires are really important too for reducing shrub and tree encroachment on grasslands. Without fire, those shrubs will kind of start creeping in from riparian areas or from the foothills, and those species can shade out those grassland species that are shorter, and that will reduce diversity as well. And then once we had colonization in Colorado and in Boulder County, we started to see a pretty severe decline in our grasslands from agricultural conversion at first, then more development over time. And then with that development and colonization, there was also fire suppression. And so it's estimated that about 50% of Colorado's grasslands have disappeared to these factors. And that's the most of any ecosystem: forests, wetlands, riparian areas in the state. So they're really the most imperiled ecosystem in the state. Actually kind of considered across really the world of different types of grasslands are the most imperiled.
Disappeared into basically just fallow lands.
For agriculture, development, for all
So
of
not
those.
into other wildland types, more some development, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So going on to present. So really for our parks and natural resources, when we're managing our lands, our main goal is the health of our ecosystems. And so for grasslands, that's our grassland health that we talked about. And so there's a lot of management actions that we take to improve grassland health that also has some co-benefits for wildfire mitigation. And so one of those that we do is prescribed fire. So that's a photo from Sandstone Ranch a few years ago when we did a prescribed burn. And that's really, instead of relying on wildfires, which in these urban areas like we have here, we want to be able to have more control over those fires, when they happen and how they happen. So we implement prescribed fires to help with that grassland health that we talked about earlier. One of the other things that we work on that has a co-benefit for wildfire mitigation is cheatgrass control. So cheatgrass is a winter annual, so it's a species that grows over the winter, greens up earlier than most other native species, and then it senesces or dies earlier in the season. And one of the biggest issues with cheatgrass is that it can create a really dense monoculture. So actually, in this area where the firefighters are standing, most of all of this is actually cheatgrass in there. And you can see it gets really thick thatch layer, all that dead material there, and really crowds out, or can crowd out, a lot of our native species and kind of take over that landscape. And that creates issues for wildfire, because naturally our prairies would have more diversity, would have a suite of species that would stay greener throughout the year. But if it gets taken over by cheatgrass, then you have this monoculture and this continuous fuel load that can increase fire severity. So that's one of the things that we work on is controlling cheatgrass, not necessarily for wildfire mitigation, but to help with our diversity of the grasslands, but it also has that benefit for wildfire mitigation. One of the other things that we do that we've kind of just started doing this year, we did a little bit, and last year with grazing was actually using goats. We were using goats primarily to control annual weeds, but one of those co-benefits for wildfire mitigation is that those goats will reduce fuel loads and will also actually trample vegetation. So that's one of the other issues that we've seen, particularly from the Marshall Fire, was those grasslands really hadn't had a chance to necessarily get enough actually snow load to push that fuel down. And so standing fuel, if you think of it kind of like, if you're holding a matchstick, if you're holding it straight up, that flame gets bigger, but if you're holding it kind of sideways, it won't get as big. So when you trample that fuel load down with goats or any other grazing animals, it does that same thing and can reduce fire severity. So one of the other things that we focus on, and this is more for actually direct for wildfire mitigation, is focusing on this grassland-urban interface. You may have heard of the wildland-urban interface. That's usually has been used more to refer to that area up in the foothills and mountains where we've got that interface with development and wildlands. But in this case, people are starting to refer to it as a grassland-urban interface to try to differentiate between what was traditionally referred to as up in the mountains and foothills. We'll talk about more what's on our grasslands. So the city and Parks and Natural Resources, we have a mowing SOP, standard operating procedure, for how we do our mowing on grasslands. And part of that SOP calls for a mow ban in those areas of development that's adjacent to, say, an open space or a nature area that has grasslands. And so that mow ban has multiple benefits. One, will help keep weeds from encroaching into people's backyards or wildlife getting into people's backyards and create a little bit of a buffer there, but it also helps to serve as a fire break for people too. And then one of the other main things that we do is public education. Really the biggest determination of the outcome of the survivability, if you will, of a structure after a wildfire really depends on the structure's ignitability and the amount of what's called defensible space around that building or structure, particularly the most important being in that 0 to 5 foot space right next to a structure. So really, because of that, homeowners, other landowners, structure owners, they really have the greatest ability to protect their own structures from wildfires, more so than what we can do by managing grasslands. And so there's a couple good resources here. I don't know if these will pop up. Maybe. Anyway. Anyway, you can go to State of Longmont's website, Public Safety. They've got a great website that talks about different ways that homeowners can protect their residences. And then Boulder County has this great group with a wealth of resources called Wildfire Partners. And they all have really great resources to educate homeowners of how to create that defensible space, particularly in that 0 to 5 foot range around their homes. But then also talks about other things like wood fences. It was found after the Marshall Fire that one of the biggest contributors for fires getting from the grasslands into communities was actually wood fences, acting kind of like a fuse, if you want to say. So it would catch part of the fence on fire, and then it would just gradually drag that fire next to a home and eventually ignite homes on fires. So there's a lot of things for homeowners to really consider for keeping their own structures safe from wildfire, whether that's more traditionally up in the foothills. A lot of people are starting to use sheet metal roofing instead of asphalt roofing. Things like making sure that you don't have a wood pile right next to your house, thinking about what kind of vegetation you have next to your house. One of the other big contributors to wildfires in urban areas are junipers. They really go up in flames and cause a lot of issues. So there's a lot of push for homeowners to start replacing junipers next to their houses. So anyway, if you've got any questions, you can certainly visit those websites, or if you want to contact me, and I can direct you to some resources for you. And then going into the future of what we're working on for fires and grasslands. So a couple of things. There's what's called the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. The county is just wrapping up updating the county Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And what those plans do is they identify wildfire risks in these grassland or wildland urban interfaces, and then they will identify ways to reduce those risks. And so they all must include, by federal law, and actually Colorado State Forest Service requires, if you're going to actually do this community wildfire protection planning, they have to include collaboration with stakeholders, government and non-governmental, and residents. identify those fuels reduction treatments, and then recommendations that homeowners and communities can take to reduce the deniability of structures. So what we've done, we've kind of started already. We put in a budget request for next year to get funding to provide matching funds to do a city community wildfire protection plan. And looking like this fall or winter, still waiting on the timeline for when these grants open, but we'll be applying for grants to help fund a community wildfire protection plan. And if we get this funding, that we should be able to start, and as long as we get the funding from city council, we should be able to start the community wildfire protection plan process for the city next year, hopefully. And then the other thing that we're working on are what we're going to be calling stewardship plans for our open spaces and nature areas and other properties that have natural resource values. And stewardship plans are basically a process where we'll evaluate our current conditions of our habitats on the properties, develop what we want as future desired conditions for those habitats, and then lay out the steps to get from A to B through restoration. And so part of that is really focusing on creating healthier ecosystems, including grassland health. And so, like we've been talking about, when we create those healthier grasslands, we have those co-benefits of also reducing the wildfire risk for the community. So that's kind of what we're working on. That's going to be a multi-year process. Like I said, we're just starting this process, so I anticipate right now, off the top of my head, like 5 to 10 year process to get those complete. Before we even start implementing any of those steps that are identified in those stewardship plans. And that's all I've got, but certainly have time for questions if anybody has any.
I have a little list of questions if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Alright, I'm gonna work backwards if that's okay. For your community wildfire protection plan, city or county, are you working with utilities or is?
Once we get confirmation that we'll have the funding,
Yeah.
then we'll be pulling together as internal stakeholder team. So utilities, particularly because water contributors, human cause for wildfires has been electric lines. So utilities will be involved, public safety obviously. We've had initial conversations with a lot of different groups. It's actually pretty remarkable how many different divisions or departments within the city have some sort of influence on wildfires within the city. So including planning and talking about potential changes to building codes to make structures more protected too. So yeah, well,
I was just, LBC has money for fire protection type of stuff and we're trying to work around that, so I would encourage you to speak to them right now.
Absolutely.
Because of the electric issues and faults and stuff, particularly when the line area is an issue.
Yep.
This is kind of random, you might not know, but do you know how many acres of grassland we maintain?
That's always a good
50,000,
question. Yeah.
10,000.
No, I think we're, as far as nature areas and open spaces, we're probably in that like 2,000-ish kind of range of properties. Because most of those properties are down in this lower elevation than our grasslands. So I'd say ballpark, we're around there.
2,000 properties or 2,000?
2,000 acres. Yes.
Where do the goats come from?
So
do you pay for them?
Yeah, we do pay. We do pay for
right.
it. One of the reasons why we've just been implementing them is that they're pretty expensive. You're looking at goats. They average about 1/4 acre to an acre a day with about 100 to 200 goats, and per day we're looking at about $1,000. So it can add up quite a bit. So if you're talking about 2,000 acres of grasslands and at most 1,000 acres in a day, so 1,000 times 2,000, so quick math, what is that? 2 million? Yeah. So,
Does it last longer?
so that's one of the tough things about grassland management for wildfire mitigation. So whether it's mowing, grazing, prescribed fire, grasses grow quick. They grow back pretty frequently. So it doesn't last that long. It's kind of one of those things.
Ripping out by the root and it's like lasting longer.
No, yeah. You're typically, and that's one of the things that we try to do with the grazing as well, is try to prevent damage like that of ripping plants out by the root. So that's one of the other limiting factors of using grazing is that there's not many people that do it well. So right now I'm familiar with maybe 2 3 different companies actually that you can hire for grazing, and they're in big demand, particularly after the Marshall Fire. So City of Louisville, Superior, Boulder County, City of Boulder, everybody is trying to get as much grazing as they can, because not just for wildfire mitigation, but because they're grasslands, just like they evolved with fire, they evolved with grazing too. So grazing is really important for grassland health as well.
I have one more question if that's okay, but it's
Yeah.
kind of a two-parter. I was involved in fire, open burning, and permitting, burn piles and stuff in my past job. Who permits our open burns?
Typically, it's going to be the fire protection districts or city fire department. So, depending on where you live in the city, most of the urban area is going to be covered by City of Longmont, but then there's some outskirts that are covered by Mountain View Fire Protection District. So, yeah, so open burning, you typically from whoever's jurisdiction it is, you get that permission from.
But state, we follow state guidelines too for the air quality.
For prescribed fires, yeah, that's a whole different question for prescribed fires. So those we have to coordinate that with state Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment.
Right, and do they
Mostly
have
for
like the weather
smoke reasons.
condition parts of it? Is
Yeah,
that
for
not
prescribed
around?
fires, there's a big part of that, and mostly it's for smoke mitigation.
Yeah. And then maybe a second part to the question, but do we allow open burning for residents? Like, can people buy up burning or? It's like a
That's
really
a good
important
question.
planning building question probably, but it'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't know if depending on maybe how a property might be zoned.
How big or big it is or
that.
something. The ag.
Yeah, it's probably more agricultural properties.
Yeah.
Zone ag properties can do open burning, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if we have actual
Can you
rules
do
around it.
like the weed dragons?
It's
It's like, you know what that is, right?
for like weed control burning, that's a good question. I actually don't know the
I
answer.
mean, I do, but
Oh.
I don't know if I'm allowed to go.
Yeah.
Right, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I just do it with, a firefighter husband and
Right.
a hose sitting right there, and
Yeah,
I mean,
don't
I don't
know
do
if- I don't know.
dried, I don't do dried weeds, I do.
Yeah, I don't know if technically
Bring up-
if that's allowed or not.
I'm gonna back up that tape.
It's not, I'm okay with it, like, whatever, if it's not allowed, it should be, it's a chemical-free way to do it, it's just a propane torch, so,
Right, yeah.
you know.
Oh, we can look into that and figure out that is allowed within city limits.
And,
Well, I think the only reason why most would be kind of steering away from it is after the Marshall Fire. And not everybody has somebody who knows enough to have all the things in place there. I mean, that was very common back in the day, but not as common now because of the fact that too many people just didn't know how to do it right. I mean, you were saying, not to burn the dry weeds, where these folks are like going, everything must go. It's
yeah, I mean, it's really tempting,
Yeah.
all of us look at it and go, Is there any chance that maybe the city of Longmont will follow some other cities and allow people to have goats in the city limits, our own goats, so that we could just go hang out and help you out, Jim? I mean, I know in Lafayette, there are goats and, the goat lady comes to our school all the time. She walks her goats every afternoon and we don't have to deal with weeds. So.
Well, I was on council in 2007 to 2011, and we dealt with backyard chickens. And my father was on council when we talked about potbelly pigs. So I can tell you that these things are not easy. It's kind of along the lines of a cat leash law. And one advice he always gave me was when people start talking about cat leash laws, steer clear of it. So I'm a little hesitant because of the reaction of the issue around the backyard chickens. But I also recognize that my son-in-law's father is a vet, and he says that they have sheep where they live up in Fort Collins, and you have to have like 2 or 3 goats. They're very much a packed sort of animal, so it's not as easy as some folks say, I'll just get 1 or I'll just get 2. They're really much better, healthier existence with 2 or more, and it becomes kind of a bit of a real problem, after a while, depending on, you know, and our issue was with the chickens, you know, roosters and everything like that. So it's a great environmental way of looking at things. I don't disagree with that. I just get a little concerned that we could get someone over our skis. And so I think we if people really feel strongly about that, we certainly can look at it and consider it. But I'm a little bit hesitant, okay?
You're not gonna tell me yes right now, I didn't figure you would.
I'm not going to.
A question, is there an area of city open space that is an exemplary grassland ecosystem that has public access to, like you could like walk by and see a really well restored area?
You know, one of the areas, and it's partially grassland, partially riparian area, is actually on Resilient St. Vrain project on St. Vrain Creek, between Main Street and South Pratt Parkway. There's one of our partners is the Watershed Center. They're a nonprofit group that helps to coordinate watershed-wide land management. And one of the things that they help the city, Boulder County, City of Boulder do is help do some data collection. And so they've been collecting some vegetation data up and down the watershed, and they found actually that stretch of St. Vrain Creek, which is totally novel and created by the city, basically from scratch and reseeded and replanted. It actually has the most plant diversity of any reach that they monitor in Left Hand Creek and St. Vrain Creek watersheds. So it's pretty good example of having a good diversity of species in there that when you take a look at it, at least from my practitioner standpoint, when I go look at it, it's like, this looks great. And we have the data that actually now backs that up.
So you're talking the Dickens area, is that what you're talking about?
Just upstream of that. Yeah, so upstream of Main Street, between Main Street and South Pratt Parkway.
Okay.
So it's a small strip, but to give you an idea of kind of the diversity that we would like to see across all of our grasslands, it's pretty good one.
I have a question, would that be something that we'd see in the Rivertown development, something that's gonna take place near to RSVP development, where they get a chance to do a bunch of?
I haven't seen the latest plans for what they're planning on doing. We've certainly, in those past discussions with the developer, have said, with input from the community, that in those areas of their development, they're going to be adjacent to, say, Rogers Grove nature area. If they could try to focus that to be more native than kind of typical landscaping. Their initial reaction was sure, but we'll see where that goes.
Thomas, yes.
Yeah, and the only other thing to tag on to that was when you were talking about how grassland fires can then jump on fences and create fuses into the middle of the neighbourhoods. Does that mean that like Longmont City or someone from who has knowledge on this is telling current developers or existing HOAs like, hey, maybe we could start transitioning towards a non-fuse-like fence?
I think, right now it's just public education. There's nobody telling people that they have to put in a certain type of fence. So that would be part of this community wildfire protection plan, is to evaluate building codes like that and see if that's something that the city does want to implement or not in building code.
Yeah, just the example of these HOAs currently all starting to knock up brand new fences after 30 years of letting people put them on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just might be an opportunity to put that in front of these guys and for the same cost, why not?
Absolutely, no,
Yeah.
I agree.
So the community wildfire protection plan is basic, it seems like a vague amorphous thing to me. Is it basically, if I understand right, like codes that we're going to enact and things we're gonna present to the public besides codes suggestions to the public? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that it is pretty high level planning. So basically we'll identify whatever wildfire risk there may be. So some of that is based off of adjacent grasslands to the community or around Longmont, and what kind of risk is there for those to create a wildfire risk in the community. And then, but then also looking at like building codes that we were talking about, and evaluating what are the options to help reduce wildfire risk for those situations. So it could be, for grasslands adjacent to the community that the city owns, maybe part of that is let's try to implement more grazing, making sure that we are implementing those mow strips adjacent to the residences and that kind of thing. Traditionally, a lot of these community wildfire protection plans have been more for those forested communities, so a lot of that was forest health mitigation. So we'll be looking at stuff like that. So it's whatever's on the table that is identified as a risk, and then identifying what could we possibly do to reduce that risk.
Just a quick comment, building code's going up for change at the beginning of next year. You might be able to sneak something in sooner than that if you just chat with them or might think about it.
Sure.
So as long as you're making changes and amendments, might be something.
Yep.
That doesn't take 2 years to just throwing it out there.
Yep, no, appreciate it.
Any other questions about CWPP, the new acronym? I'm gonna start throwing that out there. Thank you, friends. This was great. Thank you, Jim. Let's keep trucking then. Special events.
Did you want to swap places? So
Yeah, I'll swap with you. I'll get this up for you right now, though. There you go.
I'm Sam Calhoun. I'm the recreation program coordinator in charge of our public events program. I work out of the Memorial Building, which is where most of our, handful of our events are. So first, why do we need a thriving public event program? There's 3 buckets of benefits. The first is economic. For us, it generates revenue through ticket sales, registration, sponsorship, food and beverage sales, that kind of stuff. It also increases spending in the surrounding areas, especially for the kinds of events that draw people from outside of Longmont. And then it also provides cost-effective marketing opportunities for local businesses. Socially, there's a bunch of benefits as well. It provides people with the opportunity to meet new people and socialize with the people they already like. It reduces feelings of isolation and supports a quality of life. It's really important for our social infrastructure to have places where people can come together. And then community-wise, it helps us build relationships with private organizations, local businesses, neighborhoods, and citizens. It increases our social capital, so when we do something that's good and people have a good time, then they trust us to do more things. And it also instills a sense of pride in your community and a sense of place. So far this year, we have had 5 events. The first one was Windows to Wellness on February 10th. Windows to Wellness is a wellness fair where people can get access to low-cost, holistic wellness services. It's about $1 a minute for you to see a chiropractor, get acupuncture, get your tarot cards read, that kind of stuff. This year, we had lower attendance at that one than in years past because we had a big snowstorm the night before, so that was just luck of the draw, but that's usually a pretty popular event. So, and then May 4th, we had our Strider Race, which are balance bikes for preschoolers. That one always sells out. And this year, we moved it from September to May, and it's still sold out, so that's a really popular, really cute fun race. And then in June we had the party at the Ute Creek Golf Course. The party this is the 4th year of party. It moves around between the golf courses, and it's a really easy concert that people in the neighborhood can walk to, buy stuff at the clubhouse, and the pros really love it. And then we also launched our 4th of July celebration this year. It was a huge hit. We had 9,600 people, and a drone show and a fireworks show. And then in August, we had our kids-only triathlon and our Try-a-Try, and we actually had a 25% increase in the kids race this year, which is great. Being in Longmont, we're just outside Boulder, which is like the mecca of triathlons. And we are pretty much the only pool swim triathlon, so it gives kiddos a chance to get in the water and test out their skills, and then Try-a-Try gives adults who are wanting to try a new sport are coming back from injury, an opportunity to get out on the course. We have 5 more events coming up this year. The first one is Rhythm at Roosevelt, which is our big festival. It's on the 21st at Roosevelt Park. We're expecting right around 15,000 people at that one. We have a bunch of vendors, food, free activities, ropes course, that kind of stuff, and 5 bands. So, and then October 26th is our Halloween parade. That one usually sees right around 8,000 people in and around Main Street. November 9th is our turkey trot. We're expecting around 1,100 racers at that one. That's our biggest race by far. And then December 13th is the Longmont Lights Festival, where we go to the park, we have bonfires, live music, Santa's workshop, where kiddos can go and make crafts, make a toy, and then visit Santa to find out if they were naughty or nice this year. And then on the 14th is the Longmont Lights Parade, and that's our last event for the year. So events are primarily supported by sponsorships and partnerships. We are trying to find a more strategic way to target businesses for partnerships. So this year we sent out a survey asking people about their consumer habits, their hobbies, their interests, what they would spend money on. We had 557 respondents to that survey. And 56% of those respondents said that they would be more likely to engage with a company who supported our events and programs, which is really great. And I can definitely sell that to sponsors. Looking forward at 2025, few goals. Change something about Rogers River Run to help support it, since it's no longer propped up by Rhythm on the river. And then explore alternatives for the Longmont Lights Festival, maybe adding something or changing something about that. Also focus on sponsorships, focused outreach, so I can sell to sponsors that we have overlapping audience, or our audience is interested in their competition and maybe they'll want to come and get in front of them that way. And then stabilizing and expanding the 4th of July. And using that to benefit downtown more broadly, and increase partnerships with local businesses and organizations. And that's it. And that's how you get a hold of me.
Thanks, Sam.
So why do we need alternatives for the Longmont Lights?
It just is, Longmont Lights is in its, I think, 13th or 14th year, and for the most part it's been the same since it launched with Santa's workshop, visits with Santa and hot cocoa in the park, so it just needs a little refresh, because our attendance is pretty stagnant at that one. Weather dependent, we usually get about 4,500 people at that, so I think we could use a little refresh.
What were you thinking?
People always ask me about parachuting Santa coming back to the park, so that's an option.
You know, we
I
used
didn't-
to,
Yeah.
We used to do that to open up the ice skating rink.
2008, yep.
Is it like leaving right from the sleigh?
Well,
Yeah, the reindeer pull
This lady looks
leaps
a
off.
lot like a jump.
Sam has a special connection.
I do have a special thing. People from all over ask me about parachuting Santa. Like people in Broomfield ask me about parachuting Santa in Longmont. So
And if you were the guy that landed, you were really up a creek, because
the
once,
kids are just gonna
once
swarm
he
you.
landed, everybody went running.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Was he packing toys or it was
No,
just him?
No, it's just
Oh.
the fact that.
He needs something to throw to the kids, like
Or like a entourage of like quick thinking
Yeah,
elves that
elves.
just start throwing candy
Mhm.
like away from him.
Mhm.
Yeah. How about the drone show, like having like a sleigh?
Well, you can't get drones over people.
Keep area.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be hard to manage downtown, but we're doing a laser show and no longer fireworks. So we are exploring alternatives to fireworks, but drones are difficult downtown.
Can you go back to the slide that has the events that are the rest of the year? So Rhythm has been around for 27, 28 years. Turkey Trot's been around for 40, is that right? At least 40.
Yeah.
And then the Longmont Lights Parade and Festival. Wonder what you all think about, have they run their course, and is it time to drop things to make room for new things?
Juicy question. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an alternative to, I mean, yeah, the turkey trot isn't super huge, so it's like, if you had something that was basic that would bring in more people, that isn't just to drop it, and then we'll invent something in the next few years. I think people would get nervous about that, but.
Well, there's so many turkey trots.
Right.
Every community seems to have a turkey trot.
Right, but I think that's the thing, every
Yeah.
community should have a turkey trot,
I mean, and it speaks to our heritage as, for a long time, we were Butterball,
Yeah.
so, like.
Original sponsor.
I mean, glad it's
They
not.
were,
So
one of
glad it's
my first jobs with the city was to go down to the turkey plant to pick up the frozen turkeys for the awards.
Oh, that's
Interesting.
nice.
Yeah.
I will say for race wise, our turkey trot's pretty healthy at 1100. That's a pretty solid number for races. Races are difficult, especially in Colorado, because the market is so saturated. But for our purposes, turkey trot is definitely our healthiest race. We also had this July we had to cancel Rogers River Run because of the weather. So I would love to have an alternative to that. I think if a race is going to go away, it should be that one. But I think compared to the rest of the events in our fall lineup, I think Turkey Trot and the Halloween Parade are most stable, most healthy at this point.
What kind of numbers do you look for when you mentioned the Longmont Lights? Would you say it was like 45?
4,500.
What do you
Yeah.
think is a number you would like to see?
Longmont Lights is difficult because it's such a short period of time. It's only 3 hours. So 4,500 isn't nothing to shake a stick at. It's not nothing. But I think if we're gonna do a festival like that, I mean, maybe a change in format is a better way to word that. Maybe make it longer or, add something to it that way versus trying to increase numbers. I do think, for a festival that is that much work, I think probably 7,500 is a good goal, but it's hard to get to that in 3 hours.
Yeah, I think one of my reactions is that, like, with the Longmont Lights Festival, like, if it, bucketed both days with the parade, because it's insane for restaurants on parade day, and, all of the food trucks, like, my friends who own food trucks are all like, this would be, we could be here and do something, so they just see, like, whatever it is, 50,000 people covering Main Street, and then we have restaurant space for a couple thousand or something, doing something that, leverages all of those people coming to the parade.
Have you ever done like a food truck taste of Longmont program, just out of curiosity?
Oh, shit.
That's what, I actually gave that to my family for Christmas, 2 years ago, the best taco in Longmont, that's what I gave to them, $200.
Just all the topics.
We went all, I know the best taco truck in Longmont.
Yeah, it's just they're like I'm from like the Chicago, Milwaukee, big city, or like food, like taste of Chicago, taste of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Like we're a little small for that, but I do think we have good food here. As like a somewhat outsider, I'm fairly impressed with our restaurants and sure food trucks. As long as we're not talking, I have 2 questions. If that's okay. Not totally related to events. It's okay. Kind of related, I guess. One is I'm always interested in survey stuff. When you said you sent it to 500 people to find out what their consumer preferences were what usually happen about businesses. What was that figure?
So we had 550 people respond to a survey that we sent out to our constant contact listserv, which is 30-something thousand people. So individuals, yes.
Individuals, not businesses, or, that's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
number of people, I was worried, there's like a little survey
Yeah.
fatigue among residents
Mhm.
sometimes, so I'm always curious, like how many are being sent, and which list you're sending. The other thing is when you're trying to get like business partnership, I assume maybe wrongly that you talked to like LEDP, Longmont Economic Development Partnership, DPA, Chamber, all for like normal avenues, so like these businesses come to us.
Yeah, we just met actually with DDA and Visit Longmont last week.
I figured.
I kind of like to see, in general, our events reflect like our uniqueness of our community, because there's just kind of too much out there now. Like there's really, I mean, for a while, my son and I went to every free event for like a couple of years, and that was doable. I mean, we were busy, but we went to every free event in Longmont, every itty bitty city, every all that stuff. It is undoable. It's like there's so much out there, and like how many times there's free music everywhere all the time. You can't get away from it. Like seriously, you can't. You're like, wait, I just want to quiet today. Like there's free music everywhere. There's like that, and not that I'm saying that's bad. It's just that it does get to be fatigue, and it does get to be like where we're spending our. We do get to be part of the like noise, and if it's so like Cinco de Mayo, we do have a Latino heritage. You know, a lot of Latino heritage here. I know you didn't say Day of the Dead, even though that's a city thing. So I don't know if that's because it's a museum, but it's all city thing. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Day of the Dead. That is like, you know, it doesn't have to be just a museum. Like, expand those, make them like the best they can be, and with more resources. And then, you know, and like maybe less things with better bands. Like, who's at Rhythm and Roosevelt? You know what I mean? Like, do we have any big names? Because we don't tend to have big names. And you can get free music at one of the 13 breweries that I can walk to from my house at like any moment in time. So I just think that like those things, it's like, why would I go to Rhythm? I mean, I'm so glad that it's changed times, because it was just ridiculous. It's like hot, and I like remember being required to work there, you know, because I was a city employee and all that stuff. Just like, I'm just sweating, and no one seems to be here, and nobody's listening to music, and they're all in line for Avid for Adventures Little Kayaks. And that's all they did, you know. So like the things that just really maybe define us, like, you know, like a heritage festival with celebrating our Japanese heritage would be great. Our Native American heritage would be great, and things like that. So if they can be incorporated. And if you ever want to like brainstorm holiday, it's so fun.
You got it, dude.
Yeah, I love brainstorming at parties. So fun.
Awesome.
But I don't know, does anybody else think that way? Like I think it's okay to pare down a little bit.
I think it's hard to track all the things going on because for each of the groups, they're their only events. Like you're only showing your events. And as a resident, like I don't track what is rec sponsored versus museum sponsored versus LDDA sponsored. I love how many events there are. Like I have no reason to pare it down, but I think centralizing awareness of what's happening might be a little more efficient in some way for residents to know what's going on. I think people like don't know that things are happening because they either aren't on a certain listserv or they don't have a certain friend that works with them. And some things are just better organized than others and better notified. So I think there's a ton going on. It's just a matter of awareness to increase that. I've only lived here for 5 years, so I think all the events are great. I'm not tired of them yet. My big goal for next year would be like just iterating on the 4th of July. Like awesome, it went so well, but you know, how can it be both easier for the city to plan, and it's not like a 2-week mad rush that I'm sure you're crazy 2 weeks before that, as well as just accessibility of that and maybe more like daytime options for that too. That'd be a great goal, just to kind of enshrine that as a successful thing and expand it a bit, or just evolve on the things that worked well and didn't.
Hey, Scott, please.
Do you run into competition across the city for our sponsorship dollars?
Yeah.
has there been conversation between, different groups to?
Yeah,
It'd be a lot easier for a lot of sponsors.
Yeah.
To sponsor across them rather
Yeah.
than individually.
yeah, it is, we do run into that, and I'm constantly in contact with Colin from LDA and reaching out to Dan with the museum, to talk about how we can potentially partner and at the very least, just not step on each other's toes. So, yes.
Follow-up question?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
have
on,
a
it's on your
question.
eyes.
Yeah,
Number four.
so how, this is a little bit towards Jeff as well, is like, how's the relationship with outside events and scheduling outside events and UOPP in that whole process? Are
Like, do you mean events
impacted?
that I don't manage?
Right, or that are coming from outside, some group besides Bone, which is Oktoberfest or something. How much of your schedule versus like outside schedule is that? Like, are we trying to balance? Are we trying to just do it all one once?
Well, Sam doesn't do anything with that, just city events, if
Right.
you're talking about just public places and that sort of thing. Ben,
We have, so we certainly, there's a community knowledge when Art Walk is happening, when various things generally happen, and people will get together between us, Rochelle Hinton, who reserves all our parks, she sees all the OPPs, I see all the OPPs, and that's how we kind of manage that. And as we see new ones come in, we will tell them, well, hey, you got this going on this day. This may not be the best day. This might be a better day, or location. So yes, the answer is we look at that as kind of a holistic thing. So we have a small group of people that reviews those, and specifically in recreation, a couple of folks will take a look at those and understand what's currently going on, what could go on. We don't want to stand in anybody's way, for sure. We want to encourage people to be successful with their things. And that's what we want to try to give them tools to do so and make sure we're not bucking up against them. We had one happen this year with Humane Society well knew that we were doing Rhythm on the River, the Rhythm at Roosevelt. I mean, the name, I should say. That day, and they put an event on that day.
I functionally for permitting, even though we warn people that there are X amount of other events going on that day that may draw X amount of people, I think if they want to put in the permit application, then unless there's functionally a reason to deny
We
it,
won't
then
stop
they'll get the
people,
permit.
right? We just want
But
them
we
to be
do,
successful.
open that dialogue, just so we know what's going on. But if someone wants to do it, then
So has there been interest in the outside folks picking up events that would be a replacement for any of these?
yeah, we just had a meeting with someone who's interested in partnering with Rhythm.
ultimately taking it over.
Mhm.
Okay, let's change it to sugar beets.
Okay.
Because, sugar beets
Yeah.
and have it be all about candy and desserts and deliciousness and celebrating our heritage and having like actual real sugar beets, a pile of them there, and bringing our agricultural community that still grows sugar beets, and it's really important, and they need that out there because there's sugar beets.
So
out of
moving
that
away from
beet.
Rhythm on the River, there's actually some folks one of the biggest things that I get a complaint about is the fact that it moved from
Rogers.
Rogers Grove to there. So
That's what I was saying.
to maybe renaming it to Sugar Beets and having it there and just kind of letting the
rhythm connotation.
Huh?
The rhythm connotation fade away.
Just kind of fade away.
It's
And
also one of our biggest compliments.
yeah, I know, I'm not trying to be
It's
critical, but
definitely-
yeah, they
That's
just,
funny.
it's always back and forth, so.
I liked Rhythm at Roosevelt.
The grass is a lot nicer too.
It is, yeah.
Oh, I would agree. But it goes along with your idea, there, Sugar Beets, you can have all these things encompassed in it and then still have the music aspect.
And sugar, man. lots of cotton candy vendors everywhere. Gourmet cotton candy everywhere. I got
I've never been to a
cotton
candy fair
machine
festival
full
thing, like
back
of
in
all the
the
things we've been
70s.
to.
Yeah.
I've never been like a sugar.
Straight out of
dessert
Malcolm in the
thing.
Middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got crazy with
Well,
flavors.
you get 'em both.
things pepper,
But-
things like that.
But that's a, over here, it just, we're so.
Yeah.
Sounds all.
I didn't eat dinner too, so.
This is a good discussion. This is a good discussion. I want to just get us back on track if we can, and keep on trucking forward so that we can get through tonight.
So thank you, this is so fun.
And I'm sure keep on talking.
You have fun.
I know.
Try to like say a formalized version without having to finally. Yeah, there you go. Okay, if we can just keep on moving forward here a little bit. I wanted to just ask if there's any last questions for Sam on this topic. Any other recommendations besides what we've covered already? Yeah.
Email me your ideas as they come to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Let's move into topic C, which was talking about future agendas. Actually, right? We wanted to revisit this because it's been a couple months.
Yep, in October, November, and December, we had put on our agenda calendar to revisit that. We hadn't filled that at the beginning of the year and wanted to just hear options of what you wanted to hear the rest of the year.
Yeah, so definitely some like open ideas of what we can cover, but I wanted to open up to the group as well to see because we have October, November, December. So some opportunities to get things on the agenda. Sam?
I'm interested in like an overall union update, since there's like three things intersecting around that. There's like the plans for reservoir expanding, the road realignment, the trail around Union, and the Weld County Trail that's being designed. There's like a lot going on in that area that I can't keep track of the sequencing and the relationships and things. Next, like a regional update. Yeah. I was there a lot this summer, and it's such a cool space. And I was telling people while I was there, like, it's all going to change. Like, I moved over there, and like, there's a lot going on. It'd be cool to see where we're at on those things.
Be glad to do that.
The other thing that we had talked about last month was the Dry Creek master plan review, and I think David and staff will be ready to talk about that in October. Is that right?
We'll follow
Not that you're doing it, just the board wanted to have a conversation about the process and how it works.
So not necessarily specific to Dry Creek, because we presented Dry Creek last.
We can talk about
Yeah.
yeah, really is just again, when we get to that point, what that entails with community engagement, I think is a big piece of that this group was looking at.
Yeah, I think Thomas had one actually first. Sorry.
Just from the community, I guess a lot of the people I'm connected to are all similar to what Sam's saying. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen with Union.
Okay.
Random rumors, people saying things like, oh, like one landowner's holding out and that's the whole problem with it, all that kind of stuff. So just maybe to address that too. That was a large part, different sections of the community that I've been talking to. Everyone from people who depend on it for having fun and people who don't really care about it, but everyone's talking about it. Also, someone's getting in the way of it, and you know. So,
okay.
Just something from the community.
Great.
Really get an update on.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I saw Aaron and Scott. I don't remember who was
Scott
first.
can go first.
We'll have to like.
Well, last month we tabled the recreation comments.
Yep, and we'll cover that during items from staff.
Aaron.
Okay, got two?
Two.
And the second one's for you
Cool.
and me.
And us.
For us. One thing, Jim, I would love to see trail cam. I want to see highlights from the trail cams. Because the tracking I've been doing, there's some stuff that people don't know out in our thing. So I'd love to see trail cam highlights, whether it's people and things like that would be great.
I think we can pull some together. We've had I always forget the name of the middle school over there by Francis.
Speaking
Speak Middle School. They've been monitoring trail cameras for us for a while, and so we can pull some of those photos. And we have some here and there that we've had over the years, and moving around. And then I know Price, Marshall, and Bud Rock has had trail cameras up there that really show some really cool animals up there when you're down here. But there's some interesting stuff down here. You're right.
Yeah, I'd like to see a current species list too, like of estimated, like the things I'm like, this shouldn't be here, but it is, It's really cool. It's really cool. And then the next one was to Nick's thing about, why do we only do field trips in the summer? A winter snowshoe tour of Button Rock. And all.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
That might be 2025, right?
Yeah,
January
it probably
2025,
would
right?
be, February, like usually great snow up there.
I like that. I like the thinking though.
Yeah, like we could just go and see what's going on there from your point of view, not just from my snowshoer point of view. Would be great.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk to Price about that. Really, Price and Water Resources are the ones that manage that property. So, Natural Resources doesn't have a whole lot of going on up there at this point.
Okay.
Not to say that's not gonna. We might increase more of our involvement up there in the future. Then we can talk to Taylor about that too. Maybe it's something that our volunteer coordinator can help.
Yeah, we definitely have rangers up there, so.
Mm-hmm.
And I can get snowshoes for us all.
I do love that one, but I do think realistically that probably wouldn't be December, right?
No.
So it'd probably be 2025.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It's
to
okay.
December, but yeah, I was just like,
Because technically we'll start like a new year.
Okay.
But I like the thinking. I had no bad ideas. Thank you for sure. Scott.
Was open space greenways ever invited to the transportation mobility plan, or was that still left over with transportation folks? Because
Let me, Danielle works very closely with Bill.
okay,
So is that the two,
yeah,
it is Bill that is the step liaison for that group.
right,
So
yeah.
Danielle works very closely with Bill on that, so I will double check.
Because the consultants kept on telling us that it's not part of the plan, and I didn't know it's because they didn't get more direction, or I'm talking to the wrong consultant. It's always this thing, like, you don't leave the greenway and go immediately or home.
Right.
And you're not like on the street, and like, we never tie the two together. It's just, so, because it's supposed to be finalized by November or so. So, if we were involved in it, it'd be nice to.
Like the transportation
Mobility plan is
mobility
just,
planning.
it's to figure out, like, I hate the word alternative ways of like getting around the city, whatever, but the plan, basic construct didn't assume greenways were part of transportation, which is incorrect.
Correct. And we really try stressing that over here as well. That's one of the key pieces of the greenway is a alternative mode of transportation.
Right.
So I'm curious, because I've been going to the transportation mobility plan group. You were on there too. And so in this last session that they had, which was a couple months ago, I think, they had everyone at tables and we were talking about bikeways, pedestrian ways, and then it was like buses, public transportation ways. And so I'm curious what you heard, because we haven't seen the output.
Yeah, it's just that it's mostly based on like the connection to like a bus system or connection to more traditional transportation. And so the talking about connecting, like making sure you have like bike paths that connect to greenways is one of those like disconnects that we have in the transportation system now. And the consultants kept coming back with the greenways are a different construct. Like we're talking about like roads or getting on buses or that.
Yeah, I need to circle back as well because that was our last topic it was bikeways, pedestrian ways, and public transportation.
But was it bikeways just like on the street bikeways?
No, and I made the comment that there's a lack of connection from northern communities to Longmont. which is why I don't bike to work. But yeah, it was just identifying those gaps, and so there's a lot of input about, the areas that still have the big gaps and trying to really dig into those, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll also loop back on that too.
So let me go to my list here. I've got 5 I think I captured. Potential topics. A union update. Overall union update. You guys would look at. 2 was trail cam highlight. It's a fun one. 3 was field trip snowshoes / 2025. I have my notes because potentially that might be a winter thing. Winter 2025 thing. Transportation and mobility plan. I have it shared info session. I don't know what we call that exactly, but something organization with some session. There's a presenter. I'm assuming that you had in your mind for the transportation and mobility plan.
Or just some sort of
thinking,
update of where we're.
just an update. Okay. And then the last one that we have here is just the Dry Creek Master Plan revisit conversation that Jeff you had brought up just a moment ago. For that one, I wanted to talk about too because what I remember from our August meeting was that we had, or is it July? I think it was August. It was August where we had talked about the Dry Creek Master Plan specific, but then we also kind of broadened it to just how often do we revisit master plans in general? What is the normal duration? If is 15 years too long? What's right? That was something that we had tabled at the time because we didn't really have necessarily time to dig into it then. But I wanted to just open up. I don't know if this is something that we still care deeply about or wanted to talk about as a group, but I wanted to put it on the table as something that has been discussed in the past, or if there was interest in the past in having that as a topic. How do we feel about that as a topic? Not necessarily going into the Dry Creek Master Plan, Jeff. I mean, I think that's also.
Yeah, I don't think getting into the plan itself, it was more like you described.
Okay.
I remain interested in that, just understanding the process better.
Okay.
It's a big time investment and also financial investment to do master plans, and I think we often hear about them as being something that was created 10 years ago, and so some of the timing between master plan and funding is always very long, and that's by design in some ways, but I think just understanding the process better would be interesting to better equip us to give feedback.
So
Please.
I think when we had this conversation about that and the reality of it, I get a feeling that it wasn't just isolated to this group here. I have a feeling that there's a few other groups that are having that same sort of conversation, and it likely could be something that when we have our council retreat, that we could have that sort of discussion. If we could suggest that, help me remember to suggest that at that time, so that we could say, hey, how many of these are overlapping, that we have other groups, transportation and others that need to look at that in that way, that it makes a logical sense to have it more of a communal approach where we're talking about it from a variety of different angles associated with the city. And maybe that's exactly what we're doing. You've got a situation right here, I'm looking with this Modern West 2 airport back in 2000 or so, this master plan came into effect, and when the airport was mainly occupied by hobbyists and enthusiasts and people like that, now it's got businesses there and a flight school and a jumper business going on. That's a little different, and so then we're building. Those folks came forward saying, well, we have use by right. And it's like, yeah, but you're in the crash zone and we're going to lose all of our funding from FAA. And, I think, there's a lot of folks that feel really conflicted on this issue with the airport. But the bottom line is that we have to recognize that when you start going after one sacred cow, the others start falling pretty quickly behind them, because people say, well, why do we need, look at golf courses and how much water they use and how many people use those, and then we look at open space and maybe we should just be building houses there, and people complain about how we have agricultural aspects on it, but people can't walk across and trails and everything else like that, and they start, arguing that they should be able to walk across some guy's cornfield and, whatever. So it's all these sort of things that we gotta be kind of walk delicately around. And so if we could get a series of groups to be looking at the same thing, then it probably would make logical sense, because we'll be bringing in experts and other folks like that to talk about a master plan, because they probably do. We started realizing maybe these things didn't come to work out in the way that we first initially thought.
Great. One last chance. Any other topic you might potentially want to look at in coming meetings? Okay.
I don't have a question on topics, I have a question on dates. I was looking at the calendar, the next one shows up on my calendar as being November 11th, which is a federal holiday.
Yeah.
Is it not on that day?
Oh, yeah,
We have one before that.
I'm sorry, not next one, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The next one's October, I misstated that. The one in November seems to be on a federal
Something an
holiday.
administrative thing we'll have to figure out.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll be out of town the 13th, 14th, and 15th at a conference for the city. So shifting it down the week is not probably.
The city offices are closed that day, so I don't know if usually we would have a meeting on
Usually
the
we
days.
go earlier, a week earlier, a week late.
Yeah, okay, just pointing out, looking at calendars.
Okay,
for the next
thank you for
several
pointing
months.
that out.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it was cool. Okay, then we'll work off of that list then. Thank you everyone for input on suggestions on things we can try to put into future agenda items. Okay, great. So then let's move on and tackle old business. And we're going to talk about the open space tax extension. Jeff is going to give us you're going to give us a very brief update. David is going to give us a very brief update on that.
No, right now we have had council vote to move this forward and let the residents decide on this. We are working on the city clerk. We actually have a ballot number, so we have that set with the county. We are in the process of doing the pros and cons document right now. So I'm kind of spot that Jeff was before, not being able to advocate for or against. And that's the place that we'll be in, is going ahead and working with this document that Danielle's working very closely with our attorney's office and Sandy Cedar, who's been through some of these in the past, to try to get that pros and con piece. And we'll have that for you all by the next meeting. If we can get it out sooner, if we can put it in an email to you too, that might be helpful. I have people asking if we can get it tonight, and we just did not have that ability to get it pulled together tonight, because this has to be run by legal and all the other people that have to take a look at that. So that's where we're at right now. And again, I appreciate this group's support for helping us move that forward, and we will keep you updated as we go forward.
Awesome. All right. Let's keep on moving. Good update. No discussion on that topic. Let's move on to items from the packet. Does anybody have items in the packet they want to talk about? Scott.
So there seems to be a little bit of a conflict in the language between Boston Avenue discussion and Isaac Walton discussion. And I think when we left the last month, there was going to be a meeting about Greenway Detour in between those two.
Meeting. There's no outcome of the meeting, but engineering is looking at the options. And the options discussed were to allow you to pop up onto Boston and creating an 8-foot wide walk on the north side over to Sunset, where then they would join the trail and go up and over. And then in addition to that, having bike lanes in either way. So that allows for safety for families to go on the sidewalk, and then bicycles can go on the bike lane if they prefer. So engineering is looking at it. There were some drainage challenges that they had to look at, and they're going to report back. The folks on Jim's team. That's all I got. But I'll give you more when I get more.
All right.
Great. Are there items? Scott. I'm sorry. Sam.
Scott's been talking a while, it's okay.
Wrong.
It's a good guess, since who's wants to talk. I want to ask about the Dry Creek East extension to Sunset. that was in there, I don't understand what that is for, and I'd like to understand so I can talk about it.
So Dry Creek East is from, like where it ends by the Sam's Club,
Yeah, I looked at the map today and
and
like,
then where
yeah.
you connect over to Sunset.
It ends like by the bank, there, that weird bridge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is the sidewalk part of the greenway there? That's how it extends? Okay.
Yeah. And so
It seems
that's,
like a very like hard to use section of greenway.
Could you wait till a commercial?
it's always hard to turn to see,
Yeah.
It's very-
And I understand the east side goes over to Court Parkway and Sunset there.
Yeah, and then it would turn into a bike lane to go to Sunset.
Okay, and then at Sunset though, Sunset's 4 lanes and no bike lanes.
Sunset has bike lanes.
Is that like both ways? Okay.
That passphrase.
And once he gets the Google looked up,
There's a kind of an awkward intersection.
Sunset south of Ken Pratt is 3 lanes, north of it is still 4, isn't it?
let's look at Google Earth.
There's a road diet plan for Sunset north of there, but like right now it's ending in a place that like I drive every day. My son's daycare is right there at Sunset. It's a very inhospitable street to cyclists, and so I'm just wondering if that's like the most important thing to finish. I don't know.
So that is gone through design. It's also being the project manager for that is also one of the street engineers with support from our
Southwest.
team.
Yeah.
They're hoping to actually put that project out to bid, from what I understand, in October, for it to
Okay.
potentially start beginning of 25 by the time the contract will be awarded.
Yeah.
So you see where it ends.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Look here and then come along here, and then
Yeah, it's actually you were pointing to the road sidewalk, but right there,
So
I think
this
is
one?
where it is. Yeah.
yeah.
And it goes along that ridge, that where it goes down to the ditch, just the top of that hill. It goes
Yeah.
around.
And it's a city project to put that in, or is it related to development?
It's a city.
I guess my question is like, are there going to be any crosswalks? I'm like, this is
There
a very
is.
unsafe way to bike right
And
now.
if you'd like, I could
Yeah.
get more information
Okay.
and send it to you,
That'd be
because I
cool.
have the plans, I just
Okay.
don't have
So
it.
it does include improvements to Sunset? Or
Yeah, well, Sunset's supposed to die down
Yeah.
once they get this done.
So that's what's holding up the diet? Or is the diet planned?
Let me get the engineers.
If we do that, then this never happens.
It's supposed to die this part of Sunset.
Like the
when
south
This
is.
part is,
Yeah.
like the south or the other side of Minnesota.
Yeah, which would be awesome. Just like right now it's gonna end at.
Yeah, there's no reason to go 3, 4, and then back
Right.
3 again, so it's just they've been waiting until they got that tied together.
Okay, so it's waiting for this.
Just cut it
Okay.
down.
So right now it's 2 lanes in each direction.
Has it.
Instead, it's getting 1 lane in each direction with a turn lane. And so that way it creates bike lanes on the other side, so it's called road diet, which means.
This is an example right here.
Yeah.
They'll technically-
Okay, I mean, it makes sense once you say it, I just didn't know what
Like
that
South
would look
Sunset,
like,
yeah.
I will say I take that turn every day to go to work at the service center, basically, and no one ever knows what to do crossing.
I know.
Canberra. And you're in the left turn lane, and everyone's like, why am I only going left? And then
I
I
know.
figure out it's the right, so as well as that was intended, it actually turned into kind of a hassle.
It'll be even more stressful.
So just throwing it out there.
Okay, if this is more detailed plans, it's cool. It
Yeah.
just feels like right now it's gonna end like be more unsafe than it is now.
Well, there's been a lot of
Yeah.
thought in it, but I wasn't involved in this,
Yeah.
but I can get the plan for you, so
Okay,
you
cool.
can see what it is.
It's hard to get design plans when they're not like approved yet, because they can't be posted to the website apparently, so. Cool, that'd be great, thank you.
Great. Anybody else have items from the packet they'd like to bring up?
I guess I'll bring it up, 'cause it's in the packet technically. Spring Gulch 2, Phase 3 is amazing, so if anybody hasn't done it, go do it. There was like 1 billion people there this weekend doing it. The only thing, point of criticism, but I think I know the reason, the line isn't in the center, like when you go down the hill. And so I think it's because people who are going down have a little bit more
They
room
need
to
more room
turn. But it's not common anywhere else in the city. So it's when you do things that are not what you expected, then people kind of freak out about that. So
Just a little bit on that too, and that's when, there's a shared project with engineering and they have their people look at it, so, but it's a good piece for us to know as we continue to try to get consistency across project, that's great.
but people love it.
Great.
I don't want to comment on that. I wrote it this weekend, and there's a sign that kind of like blocks the stop sign that we put in, like a sign like right in front of the stop sign.
Nice.
It's a sign for the rules for the greenway.
Oh,
Like
it's
as
on the
you're
other
biking
side.
up to it, you kind of can't see the stop sign because it's like
Yeah, I see.
it's right in front of it. I feel like if you move that, you could because they're quite small stop signs.
Yeah.
And that yeah,
Chelsea.
yeah, correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which side is the stop sign?
On the east side. Just like it blocks half of it with the sign. They just move it to the foot to the side, you can see it there. It's awesome though.
I wondered why there was so much less traffic on my part of the trail.
Really, do you think it made?
Yeah, I was not annoyed. For the first time running on a weekend, not annoyed with,
Wow.
sorry, I love cyclists, but I don't love those cyclists all the time.
Sorry.
No, you're.
They can be they can be annoying, really.
It's true.
Three breast walkers, those are also exciting to me.
Which one left? Which side is left? I don't know.
No. It's the ones that wait until they're right behind you to ring their bell as loud as they can or say, on your left, and I'm like, I haven't moved my line for 1.5 miles, and you terrified me. But yeah, it made a big difference. People moved. Like they spread out. They're gonna get more exercise because of you guys. They save some lives out there.
That's great.
It is.
I had, did you work?
No, I just, maybe even once Danielle gets the next section done, and out to State Park, it's gonna be even more, it's gonna be
Yeah,
amazing.
and then we can run a marathon.
Yeah.
Too late, you should have said that when Sam was here.
There's only one opportunity.
I was just thinking of personal marathon. But marathon sounds great.
Any other items from the packet you want to talk about? If not, we'll move on to items from staff. Anything from staff, anything cost recovery related? I don't know. That might be something that maybe
Well,
staff might want to bring up.
so we pulled it last week because we were informed that no new ongoing things were going to be considered. And we didn't want to do a big presentation about something that had no chance of being funded. And Ben had mentioned this, I think, at the July meeting where we were proposing to take the outdoor pools out of cost recovery and trying to make sure that they're more affordable for the community. So that's not gonna happen, but that doesn't mean we're giving up on that. So you will probably hear that after the first of the year so that we can do some work in preparation of putting that in as a budget item for 2026.
Got it. Disappointing.
Yes.
But
Ben and the staff had done a lot of legwork on that. I think they had done some very good work. Just the timing this year did not work, and we'll try again for the next budget season.
wow, such a somber way to move on.
Yeah,
But that's okay.
sorry.
That's all right. It's the update. Let's move on for items from the board. Any items they want to raise, not covering the podcast necessarily.
Kind of a stupid little question, but I go to Thompson Park like every Saturday morning with my dog. Just that little quirky, she can't go very far, so we just do a little loop, there's a little she can handle. There's construction there, and I'm just like, is there a way for me to find a plan?
This is why I bring Stephanie out.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look, I don't, as a member of the public, I'm like, can I look it up? I don't really know how to find.
Go to slide number 5.
You have to think of your best wall joke. The wall is really something.
Well,
The
The new wall.
Yeah.
You said it is in the last week?
No, I've been on conference.
Take a
all
look,
day.
take a look when you get there.
That's, we're supposed to go on Saturday
There's a
morning.
wall.
The fence has been kind of annoying because we have to like cross it
Oh,
on the
I'm
street and
sorry,
walk
I
around
didn't
the
know.
cars. I'm
I
just
didn't
not
know.
curious.
No,
I
it's
bet you
takes
it's
2
gonna be
seconds.
over more than anything.
Yeah.
But also curious what like the playground's gonna be and what
Yeah,
kind of
so-
design or what's happening.
And the conceptual plan for the playground, the more pretty version that's not technically drawn, is on the website, on the Townsend page.
Okay.
We can't show the design documents
Yeah.
online,
Yeah.
just because they're stamp signed and
Totally
all
makes
the
sense.
pieces and parts. But I do have some information on a slide that might help, and to your question about the wall around the playground, so this is a typical detail. What he's referring to is the 18-inch tall wall, it looks like a wall, it's the curb that goes around the playground. And on the inside of that is where you'll have your EWF, which is your wood fiber, which is 18 inches deep. Then you have your sand, which is 18 inches deep. And then you have your poured in place, which has an aggregate layer, and then another layer of lightweight concrete, and then your poured in place soft and squishy surfacing. So all those things, whenever you're actually in it, and you'll see that, that's the depth that you need. And then on the outside of the wall, it looks tall now, but they're grading up to
I
it.
was
They
just
have
gonna-
reworked the contours to go around the
Okay.
exterior of the wall. So the north and the south, there's a big difference between in the elevation. It looks like a flat park. It's not a flat park.
Yeah.
It has a big slope. And so the north wall appears a lot steeper than the south wall,
Okay.
but they are gonna regrade up to the
Okay, that's
outside.
helpful.
So
I was
it
gonna
won't
ask.
be this big thing.
I was gonna ask
And
about
they-
ADA
Right,
accessibility.
they
If you get a
can't
big
for
lip,
that,
you can't.
so.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. I have not,
So,
I've been in
yeah,
Wisconsin
you
for almost 2 weeks, I have not
I
seen
think-
the wall. Be a new
Oh, it's
adventure.
dramatic.
Dramatic.
Oh.
You have
Okay.
really
Any
built
change in terms of
I'm
environment.
I like the most part, we all waited for like 2
This-
months for everything to show up, and then
Yeah,
they built a big
Well,
Yeah, I just was like,
Wow.
what is gonna happen here?
So all of this is what goes into every playground. And so
And
all
then
the
they
stuff
grade
that.
it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Oh, it's
beforehand it was all at grade level, it just was sloped. Cause there was a wall before, it just was that sloped.
And it
grade
wasn't,
level.
yeah,
That's
and
not
it
my
might have had
experience. Yeah.
The
Oh, but that's
absorption
cool.
that they
Are you
might
doing
have.
something with the bathroom?
Hmm?
You can see with the bathroom?
New fixtures?
They're gonna replace like the plumbing fixtures.
Yes.
But yeah, and this just kind of shows, you know, what's going on, what those depths are inside of the
Okay.
playground for the
That
different
is helpful, thank you.
materials that are in there. And then you can see the regrading up on the plan up here. It just shows how they're pulling those contours out and around them, so I
Mhm.
hope that answers your
It
question.
does, it really does, and the timeframe, Q1, 2025 is helpful too.
Okay.
Thanks, and just for selfish reasons, those three are those.
They're gonna be doing, I believe, in the next week and a half, pouring the flat work, so new paths and things like that.
Cool, we want to watch it come together.
I think.
I had one. We had a complaint from a member of the public about, at Rogers Park about the bathrooms being there. Did you see that at all in the?
Did I forward that to you? Then?
We talked.
It's something I talked to my Parks Superintendent, Tim Bertosky, about. And Jeff can tell me if I'm wrong, but we have our restrooms, our last cleaning, we do it on, they'll do it Friday morning, so it's clean Friday, then they come in on Saturday morning-ish. This was an event that went Friday night into Saturday morning, so it was that gap in between. It also is UOPP, so on those, from my understanding, that the vendor's responsible for cleaning restrooms, we give them toilet paper and stuff, so really, in those situations, it's not park staff that goes out and tries getting those set up for it. They're supposed to bring in restrooms if it hits a certain threshold, but if they're using our restrooms, they're really responsible for keeping those up for their users, so. I
Well,
would look
that's
at
good
it
to
too.
know, because he's just one, we'll probably hear more, and that way I can say, hey, in these types of situations, the vendor who's putting it on needs to be more conscious of bringing in the porta potties and or making sure that it's clean, so.
Jeff, was there anything you'd add to that? 'Cause I did want to share that with Jeff today, I never got around.
Yeah, if you could forward that to me, because I wanna make sure that Rochelle's telling people the right things too, but generally during use of public places, you are.
And this was the Heroes, I think it's the Heroes,
They've been there for.
but so they
a
run
number of
through
years.
Friday night and into Saturday, so it's getting a lot of use in time frames that we don't
That's
typically.
gonna be an odd time. for-
Yeah, it
for-
sure is.
For folks that you guys are working with.
But if we can give
For
an
accommodation.
explanation to people, that helps.
our commentary to the vendors would be, you gotta take care of it, you're not gonna get support during this, these odd times that are different from what we're used to doing.
Scott.
I have a question about enforcement. Again, I think it's Dry Creek, under Hoover. We get Bicycle Longmont gets complaint like every week about homeless people. There's actually one guy who's kind of aggressive there, and it just seems like either that guy comes back every single time, or there's always a problem. But it's kind of a persistent issue in terms of as a ranger issue.
It's a ranger and PD. We've all been trying to work on this. We've done. Do you want to head over by Sam's? And
we don't know why it's that one versus any other underpass. Like, there's a couple of other ones that once in a while.
There are elements that attract people that have the ability that they're trying to look for places out of the sun. They have resources that are close. There's intersections that are easy to panhandle that. So there's things that rangers and officers know, and there's other amenities there like fast food and stuff. So it's just ones that just have an attraction for people to congregate in. And it's one of the places we've looked at. We've put signs on that that say there's no stopping, standing. There has to be continued movement through those areas. We now have cameras in that area, so rangers should be doing a better job of trying to get out there and look at that. But you move people on, and they can be outside of that. They can be sitting. They could be, as long as they're not doing anything illegal outside of that underpass, they can be there. But they'll get hot, they'll be in the sun, and they'll move in there pretty quickly. So it almost is, you need someone there all the time to keep it fully from being utilized for some of those inappropriate reasons. But I do think rangers and PD have been trying to do a lot more. We also put up, there was a lot of, because people are congregating, there's a lot of trash going into the creek right there. I don't know if you noticed the wall that's been put up now, a fence, so that stuff can't get thrown in as easy. So we're trying to do a couple of things to try to make it less of an area that people want to hang out in, and also having a presence there for patrol as well. So I know I went out there to check on too, and I got there, there were 2 rangers out there that day. Went back another day, and there was an officer there. So I know it's getting checked. It is an area that I don't know if I brought this group, but we actually talked about, should we close that area for a while to do some work in there to try to make it better lighting, maybe some cameras in there, and then let people use some alternate ways until we try to change some behaviors in that area. But we felt like it was actually getting a little bit better.
Okay, yeah, it seems to be the same pattern that we see message-wise. I would recommend not closing it though, because people west of Hoover, they love it because you're not crossing a grade, and they would never take their kid across.
So that's the piece we really got to the point where we were going to talk to the bicycling. If we went that way, we've been working with Phil on that. But that was kind of what people were not using it. That's the comments I were getting. People will not use that. So everybody's going. There's a lot of people.
Like 2 months ago, we won't go underneath there anymore.
Because if somebody was there, or that's what we're getting. Yeah.
But I know they worked hard. I mean, that was kind of, I would say.
If people would prefer that to know that it's enforced and that it's open, than crossing a grade. And so, whenever, so we
Are people being aggressive?
They're being aggressive, but also people that, there are people down there with shopping carts and wagons covering both lanes. And when you come down there, dogs and sleeping to the point where you really can't rouse them very easily. So if someone's coming down there fast, it's downhill grade, your eyes go from light to dark, and I got pictures. It's just so hard for your eyes to transition fast enough. If there's someone laying across both those lanes, and they do often, or they have shopping carts, or they have their tents and stuff set up in there even too. So it's a safety issue, I think, for the people down there that probably need to be someplace else, and for our biking community to try and use that. Pedestrians, I don't think anyone walks through there anymore.
Yeah, I don't think people walk.
I was at the Neighborhood Leaders Association meeting 6 weeks ago, and somebody from the police department gave a presentation on a bunch of different things they're doing up through the city, and that became a big point of discussion during it. And what I don't recall his different presentations, so I was a little distracted, but I know they had like a great summary of kind of, like, honestly, they talked about like the meth detecting, like, that you can actually, for enforcement purposes, like actually detect meth in the air and then send somebody more rapidly than just them not catching folks in the act and stuff. But just not say, but just if this group is interested, I know the police force is giving presentations on that particular grass, because
We're dealing with the meth detectors now on the housing authority,
Yeah.
and everything, and we're just getting a few of them online that were made in, I think, New Zealand or Australia. And because of that, we had to have special, like, phone chips made here to make it work with our system. I mean, so it's a very complicated thing, but it's something that we're trying to really reduce, and we've done a pretty decent job of only having like less than a handful of units at our different housing authority locations offline due to meth. So it's getting better. And, even in a year and a half that I've been on council, I'm noticing.
I guess my best answer is ongoing. We recognize it, and we're really working to try to make the contacts and get people resources they need and get them to follow the rules and regs that they cannot be hanging out under the underpass.
Hard one, no easy answers.
Okay, any other items from the board? I had one. It was an announcement that went out last week by a David Bell, I don't know if you know one of those, regarding union and dog poop.
Yeah, that crappy topic that is coming out
today. Which didn't make it quite to the packet, but I wanted to ask about this and the updated links on this, and maybe some questions on like timing and what's the next steps for this, but also just share my own like experience of like what I've seen and since this go out over the past week, because I go to union several times a week typically with my dog, usually in the mornings, and I saw all the regulars all out there with their garbage bags, all cleaned up after not even probably their dogs. It's probably months of other people's dogs, but.
So I think this was one of the things that honestly gave me some faith in people stepping up and doing the right thing. Sometimes you lose that as you do this job after long. It's like, oh, people will do the right thing. And I was out there one day, I do my meetings in the Rangers, and when the Rangers got back from picking up dog poop, I'm like, how much dog poop are you picking up? And there's like 127 piles of dog poop. I'm like, that is not what we're paying you to do. And people need to be responsible. And I think they were looking to close it immediately. And I said, you know what, let's try to give people a chance to do the right thing. And that doesn't just slam the door on people who do the right thing. So we picked a date that we felt would be appropriate. And almost immediately, we got people emailing in saying, how can I help? We got people showing up with their own tools and stuff that left them there with little notes saying, please help and pick up. So I think it's a huge positive thing. I think people, I heard how much people really enjoy that and don't want to lose that. Also, just their willingness. And again, and also we tried coordinating with a volunteer coordinator.
Yeah.
And there's just no way to get that timing right. So we basically just let people, pretty low risk, just help out. And again, I've been super impressed with the response that we've seen from regulars. What I also hope for is the fact that without stepping it up too far, that sort of self-policing will be then something that people out there can pay more attention and rather than a ranger talking to you, talking to your friends and people sitting at the table. Because I think with the challenge out there, it's not just people being bad and not picking up. I think what happens is the other dogs run. They're at the picnic table as they're talking. The dogs go off in the grass and they don't pay attention. So it's not like you're just walking your dog at least and you know immediately when that happens. It's the fact that you're interacting with other people. Your dog does this thing, you don't notice it. As a dog owner, I'm guessing my dog probably should grab something on your way out because you probably contributed. You contributed in some way. Exactly. It's like in some way I know that I probably need to do something. But
so did you put signs? I went last time. Like, what exactly happened? Did you just put signs up and
said signs up? We did a press release. Basically, asked the public saying, that if we don't get this cleaned up, that's what I told the Rangers that. Because we're not paying them to do that. And again, just so you all know, all this staff that works there, myself included, if there's garbage, if there's trash, if there's things out there, we all stop and pick it up. But this was turning into a job. Mm-hmm. And I honestly said, if we cannot get this picked up and cleaned up by this point, we will close the dog beach and I'll hire someone. There's lots of companies out there that pick up dog poop. And when I get the budget for it, then we'll go ahead and get it cleaned up and then we can open it. So we have a definitely bigger impact on the public if we did that. So basically, we gave that window to the 16th to say, please pitch in and help out. And people have stepped up, and I've been super impressed.
So it's just signs and like in the newspaper?
Signs and in the newspaper, online. 9 News did a story on it today.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll have to check that out. I didn't see it. That's
Featured.
Yeah, featured.
That's awesome.
Times called it a story. They did a follow-up story. Felt like it must have been a slow news cycle or something.
You got a lot of sell yourself short. You're gonna carry his weight.
There's a lot of big news out there, but picking up poop's important.
I know. Yeah, it was, and again, I think it's one of the things that maybe this is one of the things I thought about when we were talking about closing that underpass too. To me, it's a little bit of sending a message to our community that if you can't use things appropriately, we have to take additional measures to try to figure that out ourselves. How can we work together to do it? And I think the consequence of losing the dog beach is a little bit different, and some people are misusing the underpasses. So how does that leverage, and how do we work with communities to try to get some of the same results? But for me, it's just another example of how Longmont residents really can step up and are willing to help out and really appreciate these resources.
I think also after we stop letting dogs up and button up and things like that, people are like, oof, I don't want that to happen.
Right.
People recognize that it's a privilege, that this is not a special feature that only we have within Longmont.
And that's a piece too that we'll talk about as we talk about
It's not that rare.
talk about Union too, that there's a lot of pieces in play there, because we lease that from the Union Reservoir Company, so it's not a city-owned piece, so we have obligation to take care of it. And then honestly, the water portion there is really managed by the Water Resources Division. So we have all these different entities involved in how we're managing that, and we need to be responsible as the ranger group that's out there, Rangers and Recreation, they're really managing that for Water Resources, the Reservoir Company, and our public.
Yeah. So I think my call out here is that I saw residents step up and really clean up after the beach. And you mentioned volunteering as well, because I think where my brain goes is, can we do this again next year, right? Better not to have to I don't want to say the word threaten, because I don't think you threatened anybody, but shared consequences of potential consequences. Right. But is there a way we can get volunteers to step up for this kind of cleanup next year?
So yes, but I would hope we don't have to. I would hope that people being out there and having some I think the signage is out there. I think we'll keep some up. One of the things with signage, and having been in this world long, that once signage is there all the time, people don't pay attention to it. So maybe we put it up at certain times when it gets busy and remind people that this is a privilege and that we can, continue to keep things open if people continue to be responsible. But always, I think our volunteer program is something that I think is one of the things I'm the proudest of with Longmont, just giving people opportunity to really step up and help out. But I hope that this carries through for a while, maybe in 2 years or 3 years when memory fades. But.
Okay, thank you.
It's pretty graphic. Picture that, it was pretty graphic. It was and I'm somebody who takes pictures of scat all the time. Right.
And
that's a pretty gross bag of food.
Chelsea's told me from the very beginning, people started right away.
That dog did not have a good diet. It's my whole fun.
So I think scat is probably a good way to end the meeting.
There you go. It's a happy scat meeting.
Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn this meeting? Who wants to kick it off?
I move that we adjourn to go talk about scat.
We have a second for that silly motion. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, are we all adjourned? Thank you all for